All right, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Can you hear clearly, Kamar?
Yeah, I can hear clearly.
Okay, good.
Okay, perfect. Is that a song? I can hear you.
The rain is gone.
So, this is the agenda topics we are going to discuss, but I'll give you a quick rundown of closeout. There's a slide that would bring it home.
That doesn't show on my.
Oh, you can see this?
It's blank.
Oh, hey, maybe, did you do like animations?
Yeah.
I got it. I clicked twice. Okay.
You see it now?
Yeah, we got it. I just gotta follow you. You lead, I'll follow.
Okay, so click twice or once. Right. So, quick introduction about what closeout really is. It is the process of bringing everything together and making sure we are conforming and making and adhering to the terms and conditions of each other, regardless of the sponsor, regardless of as long as a sponsored award, there are terms and conditions and there are requirements. And at the end, you need to bring all together. Right? And the closeout process is basically taking the time of crossing our T's, dotting our I's in a sense. And so to do that, we do have to adhere to sponsors' guidelines. We do have to adhere to the terms and conditions of the particular award, and also the institution that you are in. You may have a policy, right? And typically, when an award ends, especially with NIH, they provide you an adjustment period, which is normally 120 days. If it is 120 days after the award ends, if it is a sub award or flow through, that 120 days may change because it might be 60, it can be 90 based on the flow through conditions. Right? So this is what I call bringing all together. So on the board here, we've included all the life cycle of an award. Looking for funding, developing your proposal, reviewing and submitting, negotiating, and then the award comes in. Right. When the award comes in, this what I just described is the pre-award portion. Right. And then once we set up the award in the financial system, we manage it, we transact, we process invoicing, and then at the end, we close. And to make sure all financials deliverables are met and submitted, all the non-financial deliverables are also met and submitted. There's also what we call the order of preference. This is where I always say anybody who works in grant has 5 bosses. Right? You have your regular boss that you report to at work. And then you also have to deal with the federal regulations. You still have to deal with the sponsors' terms and conditions. And you have to deal with the award terms and conditions. Then you have to deal with your institution's policy. So all these 4 plus your boss makes it 5. Right? So you always have to navigate between 5 different bosses. Otherwise, you get it wrong. And that's why we are I call grants management the salt of the food. If you add too much salt, the food is bad. If you don't add enough salt, it doesn't taste good. Right. And I think this is true in every institution. If grant is not right, payroll can be impacted. Expenses, everything can be impacted. Right. So the salt have to be right on point. Now, the question becomes, what is closeout? But I wanted to give you an overview of what the closeout is, right? it is, we have to look at the notification because there are so many milestones to complete. And typically PIs are focused on their work, and that's why we exist. So PIs can focus on their work, and we do the financial piece, all the other administrative work. And so then there is a need to notify folks of what is coming. We don't want to wait till it's here before we say, okay, you are late, right? So we do notification upfront and then after. We also use a tool to reconcile, or in essence, to certify that, yes, I'm ready to close. Right. And in our case, in Emory, we have what we call the ART, the Award Review Tool. It's pretty much a spreadsheet that captures all the transactions that we work with our WAS colleagues or department to say, okay, everything is here. We have it all in one place. It's reconciled. Let's move forward and submit final deliverables. Right. Now, this has to be done within the adjustment period, the 120 days that we talked about. Right. And also in a case where there is a cost sharing requirement, it depends on what type of cost sharing. If the cost sharing is mandatory cost sharing, or if it is just not required. You still have to track it, but the key is that if it is required, you have to report. Right. And then we do have what we call exemptions request for non-federal awards, where some of the transaction may be in transit, or there is a cost that needs to hit that award before we finally close the award. Right. And so we try to document that through using what we call the exemption report or exemption policy to note that transaction. And then at the end, we do cost transfers, deficit removal, and then actually closing the award in the system. There are multiple phases of closeout. We have the technical closeout versus financial closeout. At the end, it's basically making sure you are meeting the terms and conditions and submitting what is required. Right. Specifically for NIH, for example, we have the RPPR, which is submitted in a different system called the Error Commons. Right. We also have the SF425s that is also submitted in another system called the PMS, Payment Management System. And then you have the 586, which is the invention statement, also in Error Commons. And then if it is a training grant or fellowship grant, you also go into Error Commons, but in the section called Extreme. Right. It's all about the same system, but when you go into Error Commons, you have to figure out where to go. So that's how we become useful in doing all this. If you want a PI to do that, I think it'll be too much for PIs to make money. Now, the section in red is the key here. NIH has the mandate to unilaterally close. You would think that, okay, let them close it for us, that's fine. No, we don't want that, because once they unilaterally close, they report the institution to SAMS.gov. Anyone who does business with the federal government is registered in SAMS. And once they report us there, it's not good. Everybody else is going to be right. So we don't want them to close it for us. We want to close ourselves. So we do have pre-close reviews that we perform as part of our closeout process. Right. It's reviewing basically all the expenses, making sure we've done our reconciliation. If there's in a journal entry or payroll adjustment that needs to be made, we make sure those are processed in advance and ensure that everything that is processed is allowable per the terms and conditions of that award. I did talk about the notification to stakeholders. So in Emory, we do have two types of notification. One is before, so 90 days before the award ends, you get an email. 60 days all the way to day 0. And after the award has ended, you still get notification to tell you we have done our part. Right. So if you continue getting the notification after, it means we haven't submitted all the deliverables. We haven't closed the award. So then we are responsible as well. So you get to hold the beginning part to make sure things are done. We hold the end part to make sure everything is done. So everybody is responsible. And then at the end, we review the financials, making sure budget to actuals, encumbrances, deficits are all removed or cleared. And then we do the effort reporting also. Some folks call it salary confirmation. It's still the same, making sure that the pay you've given people is correct according to. And then we send the financial report out. I was putting all this in a nice fancy thing, but I figured I'll just show it all at once. This is also another pre-close review, but focusing on reconciliation specifically. The key to closeout is not hard. It doesn't require much, but everything that was supposed to be done upfront, if it wasn't done well, it will become a closeout issue. Right. It's like back home we say, don't try to get your teeth to be white in one day. If you do that, you bleed.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to brush your teeth every morning. Same here. You have to do the interim milestone when the award, I always say closeout begins when the award is set up. And so you have to monitor it. You have to make sure direct expenses are correct. You have to make sure indirect expenses are calculating right, and final expenses come in, revenue is recorded. Now, in research administration, especially the tool we use, when we talk about revenue, we are not talking about cash. It is the reasonableness to receive cash, and that is revenue. Now, revenue is not calculated by anyone, right? If it's cost reimbursement, your expense becomes your revenue. If it's milestone, your invoice becomes your revenue, and the system automatically calculates that. Then after that, we have a reasonableness to collect the cash. So that's the distinction between revenue and cash. In a financial business sense, I think it's fair to say you can say revenue is cash, right? But it's not the same here. And then any discrepancies, I've never seen any institution where they wouldn't have discrepancy on an award. It's expected. But the question is, do we have measures to clear it from the sponsored to a non-sponsored or discretionary account? Right. And that's what we mean by resolving any discrepancy. And if there's caution, right, we take care of that. Again, if it's discretionary caution or mandatory caution, then we don't report that piece of it. But at least we are tracking it to see what our commitment is regarding what we put forth towards it. We have a tool called the ART, right? And like I said, the ART is the main reconciliation mechanism that we use to review our awards. Right? And again, this is almost like a repeat of the first one. It's pretty much looking at a direct and indirect and all the categories of expenses or transactions that needs to be looked at before we close the award.
So let me ask, does this app, is it linked to your compass or?
Yes.
Mhm.
So you don't, so it pulls those.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So we have multiple reports
Yeah.
developed, linked with macros to the spreadsheet. And then when you run those reports, There are buttons you click and it populates into the spreadsheet.
Mhm. This is, Robert shared that when we did the award reconciliation. It's been so many trainings, I know. But he shared that when we did the award reconciliation, it also ties to the FFR
Yeah.
that we submit, when it's a federal award.
And so there are exclusions, there are method of calculating whether it's MTDC, modified total direct cost versus total direct cost. The act breaks all that down and also breaks it down by budget periods. If your award is based on budget period, say you have a 5-year R01 and it's year 1, year 2, the act to break it down. But it's important to acknowledge that if you have cost share, that will be dependent on your relationship with the cost share recipient to send in their invoices.
Okay.
And that invoices will be entered in our financial system, which will then be pulled into the art. If you don't get your cost share recipient to bring in the expenses, then that portion of the cost may be delayed, may not be part of the financial reporting, and that becomes the PI's responsibility or the department chair, or maybe Malika will foot the bill. All right. So I did put in this here as a checklist. So it's pretty much talking about the milestone notification, the responsible areas, the deliverables, and pre-close responsibilities and post-close responsibilities. I'm not going to read all this because it will be boring, but the key is that you do have tasks to complete as you are given an award, and there are stakeholders that need to perform certain tasks. You need to be aware of what needs to happen before the timeline so that you'll be compliant. And after, make sure you've closed it correctly. So this is just for your reading, but there's an asterisk here where the act submission is important because in our university, we have different departments and we need to hand off. Right. So you find the opportunity, you apply for it, and then you hand it off to somebody to submit. When it comes in, they hand it to somebody else to set up, and somebody else track the transaction, and we close it, right? But to make sure all units are in sync, we need something to hand off, and the act is the key. That's why it's asterisk in red. The other key factor that needs to be considered when it comes to closeout is what should we submit as reporting and where should we submit it at? Is it required or not required? Right. It will mostly be driven by your contract or agreement. But in general, when you talk about closeout, we talk about financial closeout or financial reports and non-financial reports. But the chart below just try to guide us on what is required versus what is not required. Right. And so if you look at for research, typical research, RPPR is required. The SF425, which is the FFR, is required. Invention statements are required, but termination notices are not required because they are not applicable. And then if we take training grant and fellowship grant, then let's take only training grant for now. Training grant FFR is required, and then the RPPR is required. But you need your termination notices also to be reported. When it comes to fellowship, we don't require the RPPR. We also don't require the FSR, right? We only require the termination notices to close. So this is important depending on what type of awards your organization has. Is there any questions at this point? Okay. Now, this is the most important part, the PI's responsibility. So, typically, the central offices would manage all the financial reporting because that comes with a lot of numbers, transactions. But when it comes to the actual work you've done, the scientific report, whatever technical report that you need to submit, we don't have that knowledge base. It's specifically the PI's responsibility to manage that and submit that. There are other institutions that would collect that information and submit on your behalf, or some sponsors who say, you go into this portal, submit it, and let your institutional AOR, authorized institutional official, to certify. Right. And so this is basically showing us what the PIs should be paying attention to as part of their responsibilities.
So let me ask this question.
Sure.
Under the invention statements.
Okay.
So, if there is an invention through the grants, maybe a technology or a app or anything that was developed. So I want to ask, at what point do you need this? So I'll pick two scenarios.
Mhm.
If the app was developed prior to the research, or was used in the research,
Mhm.
but it was not in the proposal. But at the point of implementation, they saw it in the site.
Mhm.
And oh, this works. It could be a data capturing technology. It could be something they saw. Oh, yeah, we'll use this to get some of this information.
Was the app developed as an outcome, or like was it invented as an outcome of the research, or was it already
So
invented?
it's never invented. It was already done prior to the research.
Yeah, but was there?
Use
Yeah, it
in
was
the
just
research.
used. So no, that wouldn't necessarily.
That would not fall into this.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You will not have to do an
It's
invention
just statement.
statement for that.
Mm-mm. Now, if you added based on the research, an additional component to the app, then that's an invention that you would need to report.
There are also some inventions that generate income,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you may want to be careful as to when you negotiate and make sure the apportionment, because when the app is used commercially or privately somewhere and is generating income, you want to make sure the terms and conditions are denoting that after the work is done, what are the responsibilities that and the terms and conditions regarding.
I don't know what's happening.
I hope we are not. Anyway, so I've seen that sometimes there has to be a different or an updated agreement to outline with tech transfer to make sure, right? Because that's where your management plan come into play. When you develop an app, it's pretty much a business. And so you shouldn't be in conflict with the research. And so that's where you put your business plan and your management plan up front. So it doesn't appear that you are taking advantage of the federal funding, right? You want to be very clear because that has some serious consequences when it wasn't up front. And this is Emory's policy, right? The policy on closeout. I wanted to put that here. And where you see the green, yellowish green highlighted, it's pretty much saying all adjustment needs to be made or completed within the 120 days. Right. And so some PIs will say, oh, I'm getting an extension, or I need to talk to my product, my peer. It still doesn't matter much. Once that 120th day has come, we need to close it. Otherwise, we will not be in compliance. Now, once we close it and you get more information, we can reopen it. But we will not hold it up for you. It's like saying I'm going on a flight to Florida tomorrow, And because you are not there, they should hold the plane. No, the plane is moving. They'll get you on another flight. I'm not sure you get the same seat, but right. So that's what we have to all adhere by. And let me go back really quick to the order of preference. I forgot something, and I think it's important. I apologize for this, but I think I want to mention this order of preference right here. So this is why I talked about the bosses, but it's order of preference because your institutional policy is the highest policy that you have to go by. We have the federal regulations, we have the sponsors terms and conditions, and we have the award terms and conditions. But the institutional policy reigns.
Well, I guess there should be a caveat to that. If it aligns with the federal, why I'm saying so, you can have your institutional policy that says XYZ.
Okay.
But there is a grant or a sponsor, may not be federal,
Okay.
that has something different, unique to that grant.
Okay.
In that instance, and you sign up to work with that sponsor.
Okay.
At that instance, then I guess the sponsor's regulation will override those regulations.
So it will be a collaboration.
Okay.
But the reason why we pay more attention to the institutional policy is because the institution already foot the bill. Who pays? He who pays for the piper calls for the tune. So the person who has already paid, because the facilities you are using, every cost you are incurring, the institution is already paying for that before you go get reimbursement. Even if it is milestone based, the institution still has to pay for it. So somebody is giving the money up front. And so it's important to.
I get you. So are there instances whereby your policy is not in line with other federal sponsors?
I've not seen that before.
Okay.
I've not seen that before. But when it comes to, NIH salary cap, NIH has salary cap. But if the institution says Dr. Doe will get $190,000, or every faculty will get this amount of money, regardless of the NIH salary cap, guess what? When we do effort reporting, we are going with what the institution said. So that is the point I'm trying to make.
And we have contract negotiators that do review every award, or generally awards where the terms and conditions there may be some sort of variation to that. And that contract negotiator or that office will determine if we can accept the award based on our own institutional policies. So they can determine we won't accept the award if it is going against our institutional policies and we can't get an adjustment or get around that.
Okay, so because why I'm asking that, okay, let me use a simple scenario.
Yeah.
Each policy may say per diem rate for local international travels is this figure, this figure.
Okay.
And a sponsor may say, for our grant, this is the rate.
Right.
So, for example, if the rate is lower than the institutional policy, what do you do in that scenario?
The rate has to be, you have to go by the sponsor's terms in that case.
In that case, the sponsor terms.
Or,
so I'm saying that,
or you could go by
and negotiate.
the university, you could negotiate, or you could go by the university's rate and it would become cost share to the grant. You can only charge up to the amount that the grant determines you can charge. But if you charge anything above that, that is cost share.
So, is there a policy in Emory, for example, to say if this apple, this is the approach? But I just don't feel that things are perfect always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is not
Right.
There will be some scenarios whereby,
Correct.
there will be conflict.
Yeah, that's why in research administration, we always say it depends.
It does depend. We do say it
Right.
depends.
Because there's always a time where you have to look at this and compare to that. Nothing is perfect.
Yeah.
So it depends on the situation. Right. And when I was at UNC, I know some researchers would, instead of leasing a car, they would use the university vehicles.
Okay.
Just to use that as a caution. Right. Instead of leasing a car to do the rounds that they needed to do. So it always depends. You have to look at your situation and also, collaboration with your department and the folks in charge. Yeah. So it depends. But I thought I would go back to that order of preference to make sure that we understand the education policy is the.
I actually totally agree with you that the insurance policy should be at the top. It's just that, I'm not trying to see how you manage those differences.
Yeah.
Because and what I said is what happened, because sometimes, like in my organization, we have policies that sometimes you see, in fact, the grant gives you maybe a better opportunity, but you see the leadership may insist that this is what we follow.
Right. So there's a good example with our EPC, the Emory Primate Center. Mostly the institution has a FNA rate, 56.5. But EPC awards sometimes have different rate, which is higher than the institutional rate. In that sense, the terms and conditions overrides the institutional policy because more money is coming in. Right. So to my point, it's he who pays the piper calls for the tune. So yeah. All right. Like I said, every award has some cleanup that needs to be done. If the sponsor gives you 5 million, we are not in a perfect world. You might spend less than 5 million or more than. At the end, somebody has to do some cleanup, right? And this is basically transferring excess expenses to the discretionary account of the PR or the department or somewhere, right? So that we can have a clean accounting on the award. And then when all is done, we need to close the award in the financial system, regardless of the system you use. Right. It might be a different technologies, but in PeopleSoft, in Emory, we close the project, we close the activity, we close the speed type. Speed type here is synonymous to discretionary account. Right. And then we close all these modules in the system. The reason we do that is to prevent additional charges from hitting the award when it's closed. Because once we've closed it, the controller's office or your central accounting department also captures transactions and they close the month from the accounting period, right? And so you don't want additional cost to hit to throw off So what is the takeaway from here? We have to do incremental reconciliation. Like I said, when an award comes in, that's when closeout starts, right? If you have deficit, it's better to start monitoring your deficit from the beginning, so you know what to remove and what to keep. Submission of all deliverables has to be timely and accurate. Right? When you have sub-award on a contract, you want to be in constant communication to make sure they've submitted their invoices on time, because that will impact what you submit as the final financial report to the sponsors. And if you don't do all these, there's a chance it can impact future funding. Right? Your reputation will be at stake. And then in Emory, we have ORA, the Office of Research Administration. who is the unit above all of us. So if you have any complaint questions, that's where we go to. And currently we are only closing award based on financial reporting. The non-financial part is still in the hands of the PIs and the department to manage. We are not at the point where we can manage that yet, because there's more work from your end. If you have to do an inventory statement, we cannot close that. We certainly have to depend on it. So these are the takeaways from the closeout perspective. Any questions?
We lost Kamar just now, so
Oh, am I just saying?
yeah, we lost them on the Zoom, but I just heard it go off maybe a minute ago.
Do you want to ask questions?
I didn't want to ask questions, didn't want to know about what's that.
Yeah, so if there aren't any questions, we did share additional information with Lika, if that will be helpful. And if you have any other questions after this session, maybe you are shy, maybe just send it our way and we'll provide